Hi, welcome to week 3. So we're going to be talking today about ways of relating to the people in our lives. So the ways we communicate with the people we care about. I don't want you just to think about significant others, like couple relationships. I also want you to think about your relationships with your friends, parents, siblings, just other people in your life that are important. So think about all of the different types of relationships that you have when you hear about this information, think about this information, and start to connect this information to the way you communicate and maybe to the way the other people around you communicate. Um, and so the first thing that I want to talk about is this ways of relating to others. And so you'll notice below in this assignment, there are actually a couple of handouts. And those are the handouts that I'm hoping that you guys are looking at while you're listening to this lecture if possible. So the ways of relating to others, what you're going to notice is there are 4 different styles of communication, and we use these at different times with different people. There's aggressive communication, assertive communication, passive communication, and passive aggressive communication. And what you're going to notice as you read through these is that these different styles use different techniques and have different purposes and different goals in the communication with other people. I want you to pay specific attention to assertive communication because assertive communication is the healthiest form of communication that we have with other people. It's what we should strive, how we should strive to communicate with people all of the time. It respects other people, and we also maintain our own self-respect when we use assertive communication with one another. So the healthiest way. So if we can do that, that's the best way. Oftentimes people aren't very honest and clear in their communication because they're always afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. And so if you ever decide not to tell somebody something, give them honest feedback because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Oftentimes you're creating something where they don't have the opportunity to change something that could make their lives better, their relationships better. So if you don't give them honest feedback, they can't actually change some things that could make their life better. So read through this sheet. Try to assess the way you have a tendency to communicate the most in your relationships with other people. Okay. And then, of course, do what you can to become more assertive in your communication. And there are lots of different ways that you can change the way you communicate. That little book review that we have coming up at the end, that's the final. If you choose to do that part of the final instead of the presentation, you could always choose a book on communication to learn how to better your communication. The next thing we're going to talk about is John Gottman's 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. So a little bit of information about John Gottman. He is a well-respected psychologist and marriage researcher. And what he has found is that oftentimes it's not the conflict that leads to the end of relationships or that leads to, the bad things in relationships. It's the way people handle conflict. It's the way they communicate when they're in conflict. That's what determines whether somebody can have a lasting relationship, or whether a relationship could probably end like sooner than later. And so what he's done is he's identified 4 different ways of handling conflict that can really lead to a lot of problems in the relationship. And you'll see that those 4 things are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And I'm going to let you guys read through those instead of reading through those for you because I know that you can read those. And then you'll see the little video where it kind of shows some different examples of what that looks like. I'll also try to post, I think I'll probably post another paper down there too that gives a little bit more of an explanation so you can look through that. But one of the things John Gottman says is that if you have one of these 4 horsemen or more than one of these 4 horsemen that are just taking root in your relationship and creating problems, there are repairs to that. So you did have a sheet. The Gottman repair checklist is what this is. And so what I want you guys to think about as you do this one is in your relationships with other people, what kind of issues or what kind of styles are you seeing? Are you seeing any of the 4 horsemen show up in any of your relationships? And if so, what might you need to do to begin to repair some of those relationships? Because one of the things that you guys should be reading about with communication is that when it comes to communication, the only person we have control over is ourselves. We can't control how another person communicates with us. We can't control if they get defensive. We can't control if they use one of the 4 horsemen. or if they're aggressive or passive aggressive or those kinds of things. But what we can do is we can be assertive in our communication. We can use healthy language, the stuff from the repair checklist to communicate with those people. And a lot of times, how we choose to communicate can change the way other people communicate with us. So sometimes it starts with us, and we're the ones that have to change it instead of depending on somebody else to change. So just kind of look through all of these, look at how they affect you, how they affect your life, how you communicate, and really get into some of these. And so the assignment, of course, is below. Read through there um, and apply some of this stuff to your life and your relationships right now. I'll see you next week. Bye.